I don't know that I've met a pastor that's more chill, yet more caring than Pastor Nathan. He, man, he is not afraid. As cool and calm and chill as he seems, he is not afraid to go into the darkness and do a little battle with the enemy, and not just for himself, but for you, for your families, for your friends. And I'm so thankful for the relationship we built. And as far as the rest goes on the responsibility of churches in this space, I'm not going to go into it today. But when I read the Old Testament, the New Testament, it appears to me like those churches, those believers who do not engage with the things that cause foster care, that cause there to be orphans and widows, that not only are they not doing what they're supposed to, but they are actually sinning against God. Because in every list in the Old Testament on the sins that God hates and detests, yes, he doesn't like any of them. But the ones that he hates and detests, everyone either talks about mistreating or even just ignoring the orphan. And that is our challenge. The question is, how do we stop mistreating / ignoring the orphan, the child living in brokenness, living in darkness? All right, we're going to get into that in just a little bit. That wasn't even part of the message yet. Be thankful it was that short. It's so great to be here with you guys. I'm excited that we are able to live stream this to all of your friends and family that are at home. Encourage them, if they're not watching, go ahead, send them a text. Hey, you want to watch this? Because this isn't going to be your typical missionary up here speaking to you this morning. Yeah, I'll tell you about what we do, and yeah, I'll tell you that we need money to do it. But we want to put into action the words that are spoken. We want to put into action, more importantly, the heart of the Father. Again, this is extra bonus. We all talk about how King David was a man after God's own heart. And as I read the story of David, I began to question, God, why is that descriptor put on him? Shepherd boy, committed at least murder and battle, at most maybe some genocide, committed adultery, killed one of his best friends because of that, but also known as a great leader and king and a wise man. Yeah, not as wise as his son, but also a man who was quick to ask forgiveness. But I don't think any of those things are why he was considered a man after God's own heart. You see, I think it's in the story of King David with Mephibosheth. Now, you can say it out loud. It's fun to say. Mephibosheth. Okay, you can say it later if you want. They're saying it at home. See, Mephibosheth was the last relative of King Saul and of Jonathan, the last living relative. And the Bible says that as an event was happening, Mephibosheth's caretaker was carrying him and tripped and fell and broke Mephibosheth to where he struggled to walk, to where he struggled to function. And as King David takes over, he asks his advisor, is there anyone left to the house of Saul? And they mentioned Mephibosheth. And King David had the right as king to say, all right, exterminate him, remove the entire house of Saul from the kingdom of Israel. But what did King David do? He said, no. That is a child of the king. We will restore everything that is rightfully his back to him. including a seat at the king's table. That is why I think that David is mentioned as a man after God's own heart. Again, we're not even into the message this morning. I'm just warming up. I'm like shooting baskets before the time starts, right? You guys didn't start my time yet, right? No, I'm kidding. I do want to say thank you again to Pastor Nathan, Pastor Evan. You guys have an incredible team, their wives, Cheryl and Katie. It's so great to know you guys, to know their kids, just have an incredible history working alongside them, especially my favorite, don't tell the others, but is Skylar. Because I've worked with Skylar in foster care ministry at Rural Family Kids Camps, and just incredible getting to work with her. So I want to tell you a couple other things that you need to know about me. I'm a husband and a father. My wife, Danica, who couldn't be here with us today, and I have 5 kids. Our oldest, Brenna, is 18. Next is Simeon, who's actually here this morning. He's with the camera. He's got a school project. He said, hey, I want to do it on Huggage. Sweet, let's do it. So Simeon is 16 years old. That's actually his girlfriend, Megan, helping him out. She's our newest addition to our family. Not officially, but, there's always room at the table is what we say at the Giesman household. And we love having her. Alex is 15, Ziva is 12, and Malachi is just turned 8. And the last 3 I mentioned are kids that we adopted through the foster care system. Alex and Ziva have been in our home for over 10 years now, or almost 10 years. Yep, just over. It was 10 years in September. Malachi's been in our home all except for 1 week of his life. By the way, it was the most important week of his life. And we weren't there to help him through it. But we spend every day working to make up for that. We have kids who have been through multiple different types of trauma, been through some of the worst things you could imagine. And every day we help them walk through that. And you know what? The rest of our lives will be every day helping them walk through that. And while not all of our kids have been directly through trauma, they are all affected by trauma. I want to say it while he's here because I often say it when he's not. Simeon is actually one of my heroes. Yeah, it's okay. When we brought his brother Alex in, they were both 5 years old. At that moment, Simeon gave up his room, his toys, his clothes, his dad, his mom, his sister. I went from importance, lowest to most in that order. Gave up everything. I used to say he gave up everything but his birthday. And then we brought Malachi in, whose birthday is the day after Simeon's. So at that point, he gave up everything. And it's been tough. And I've asked him in moments of frustration and anger, I said, hey, if you could, would you want us to go back to that moment before we brought in your siblings? He said, why would I want that? And in that moment, he made me realize how much a better man he is than I. Because there are moments I want that. So I'm a Assembly of God U.S. missionary. I'm a chaplain to foster care here in the state of Kansas. I'm a member of the Assembly of God Foster Care Network. That is a collection of missionaries, chaplains, pastors, churches, organizations, and families within the Assembly of God who have decided to serve the vulnerable kids and families affected by foster care. My wife and I founded our organization, Hope Fostered, in Kansas to bring hope to the system. As an organization, we exist to strengthen families through support, parent trainings, and connecting families to resources, whether a kid is in their bio family, their foster family, their adopted family. We want to strengthen them up so that the kid has the best support he can, so that they have the brightest future that they can. We work to activate churches into foster care ministry through things like needs assessments, ministry trainings, and providing practical ways to serve the families. Your church, as your pastor just announced, has decided to take on that role here in Winfield, here in Cali, am I right? Right? Yeah, Cali County, and surrounding counties. Because your pastor in your church wants to be a pastor in a church who has the heart of the Father. And one of the things that we learn when we first become believers in Christ, that it's not enough to believe, we then have to do the work of the Father. Now, as someone who has had to do the work of fathers who didn't do the work they were supposed to do, that is hard. It's hard enough to do the work of the Father when you're doing that work for your own children. But God calls us not to help ourselves, but to help the hurting. And personally, I believe that every church should be serving foster care in some way. Now, Pastor, I think you're the only one that heard that. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to say it again. Personally, I believe that every church should be serving in foster care in some way. There we go. We as an organization help those churches figure out what God is asking them to do and do some consulting with them on how to do it. We don't come in and say, do exactly what we do our program, and that's going to take care of all the kids. No, because one of the first things you learn about people is they're all different. No person's story is the same. No person's life or worldview or traumatic moment is the same, and it doesn't affect them all the same way. So our goal is not for GracePointe in Winfield to do exactly what every other church doing foster care ministry in the United States does. Now, do we have some best practices for you? Absolutely. But we want to match up your heart of compassion to the real, actual needs of the kids and families in your community. Finally, we empower communities to support these kids and families. We find needs and we organize community partners to serve the vulnerable. Case in point, because of our programs, including Huggage, which we'll talk about in much more detail later, because of the work we've done in Sedgwick County with our child placing agency there, Ember Hope, we are one of 2 outside organizations that they have invited to be at their National Adoption Day event here this next week. "44 kids that day will be at Exploration Place being adopted into their forever families. Being an organization that looks for their needs, I thought, okay, what are those kids experiencing in that moment? Now, it may not surprise you to find out that Adoption Day can be one of the most exciting days of their entire life. But I also want to tell you it is also one of the worst days of their entire life. You're like, wait, how can that be? Well, because mourning and rejoicing are not 2 completely separate things. In fact, most of the times they're intertwined. And so on the same day that they're receiving their forever family and they know that they have someone who will take care of them and who will help walk them through all of life's struggles, during that same time, they also realize they will never be a part of the family that God intended for them to be a part of. And so as they go to this incredible place of exploration place and have all of these things, we know that there's a lot of sensory that goes involved in that. And so we created for that event specifically what we're calling Huggage fidget bags. And I would have brought one today, but they're still in process of being packed and figured out. But it's just a little tiny, almost pencil bag, makeup bag type bag. Has Huggage on front of it. And inside we put a lot of what we consider tools, that mostly look like toys, for sensory things. We put in there a couple meat sticks. We put in there some high chew candy, which helps literally calm the brain as you chew it. We put in some fidget toys, a fidget spinner, some squeezy things, different things to help the kids. No matter what their sensory need is, we will have something in there to help them. We also got a business to help sponsor noise-canceling headphones for every child. We get to just come and be and give. And Ember Hope is like, please come. Come and be, come and give. This is how we empower communities to surround kids in need. We look for the gaps. We look for the places nobody's reaching into, and we say, hey, that's where we can go. And that's where the church should be. Please know that as missionaries, we rely on churches and individuals to help fund Hope Fostered and Huggage. If you're interested in either, please talk with me or get our information. But now let's get into it. That was just the opening paragraph. I want to take you through what I call the journey of foster care. In order to do that, I've got a couple questions for you. And as a former children's pastor, typically when I ask a question, I want an answer. Even if your answer is Jesus, that's okay. So my first question is, what is foster care? I don't see any hands yet. What is foster care? Yep. I was like, she's been asked that question before. What she said was taking in kids who have a struggle in their life and trying to support them. The goal to reunite them with their parents, right? But if not, walking them through the process of adoption. So does that mean if you bring in a foster kid as a foster parent, if it doesn't work out with their bio parents, you have to adopt them? No. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I'll give you my definition. It's foster care is a government system where children may be removed from their home with the purpose of keeping them safe while their caregivers work with a caseworker to make their home safe. That's all it is. It's just a system to work to keep kids out of danger, whatever danger that might have been, and work with their caregivers to make the situation safe. The goal, as she stated, is to reunify kids. At least that's the stated goal. I would challenge us, the goal is really supposed to be to keep kids safe. And if we can do that with their family or caregiver, that's how we want to do it. Why are kids placed into foster care? One or two words. Go ahead. Popcorn it. Abuse. Neglect. Drugs. Alcoholism. Not safe. So we mentioned a lot of the reasons. The main ones that people think, obviously, abuse, neglect, parental incarceration, lack of supervision. But I want to let you know that nationwide, over 70% of kids are brought into the foster care system due to poverty-related reasons. Not abuse, not neglect. We're talking a single parent working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on and food in the pantry. And kid gets hurt making a snack after school. Gets the neighbor to take them to the emergency room where mom or dad are reported for neglect. Was it really neglect? No, mom and dad were doing everything they could to provide for that child. So we already mentioned it. The desired result of foster care, as stated, is to reunify the family as a strong and safe unit. Could I tell you that we are failing at that? 53% of kids in foster care are successfully reunified. Only 25% of kids in foster care are ever adopted. That means almost 25% of kids in care eventually age out of the system with no family to call their own. Now, I want you to think back to when you were 18. Most of us, when we aged out of being a child, still had someone we could call and rely on. As a 43-year-old man, husband, father, leader of a ministry and organization, I still call upon my parents when I need help. I still rely on my family and my wife's family. So imagine not having anybody to turn to. Man, Chaplain Jason, you're bumming us out. Oh, wait. We're just getting started. We need to understand the realization so that we can better understand the Father's heart, so that we can better grasp the solutions. I now want to go through this journey into foster care that a typical child takes into the foster care system. See, this child comes home to see their parent or caregiver sitting at the kitchen table with a stranger. Now, maybe they've met this stranger once or twice. If they met them, the stranger introduced themselves as a caseworker and asked them some very personal questions. Questions you don't just ask somebody you just met. Questions you may not even ask friends or family until there's a certain bond between you. And now this caseworker is back, and who is that with them? Oh, it's a police officer. The caseworker asks them to go to their room if they have one, or another room in the house if available, while the caseworker stays to speak with their caregiver. The child notices that their caregiver is upset, and you can feel the tension just me telling the story, let alone the tension in that room. They don't know why their caregiver is upset, but they do as they're asked. They go to their room and wait. The tension continues to build. They hear crying or yelling. How do you think this child is feeling during this moment of waiting? Oh, I heard some mumbles. Let me hear you. Scared, anxiety. I think somebody said sad, I'm not sure. Confused. The caseworker then comes into their room and tells them that they need to pack their things because they're going to live with another family. And in that moment, well, that was cool. Just unrolled perfectly. Good job, Pastor Evan, giving me a good trash bag. I'm going to keep this one. Sometimes you have to have a little humor because we're dealing with some very serious stuff. And I don't know that it's scriptural, but I think it's how we're created, that laughter really is a good medicine for us. Anyways, in that moment, they're handed the trash bag. Now, why a trash bag? Everybody's got one. They're everywhere. Do these kids, you think, usually have suitcases? They're not going anywhere. Why would they need a suitcase? Some of them don't even have backpacks or duffel bags, and this is the only resource readily available. But can I ask you, on your normal everyday life, what do you put into this trash bag? You know what amazes me? Every time I ask that question, I get the exact same answer. Doesn't matter the demographic of the group, doesn't matter how old, how young, anything. We all know what goes in the trash bag. And never have I gotten the response, my most prized possessions. Now, how do you think this makes them feel? Oh, I saw you say it. Like trash. In that moment, when they're scared, confused, their whole life is shifting around them. The biggest storm in their life, they are shown what their value is. They are trash. They place all their belongings into this trash bag and are taken to the caseworker's car. The caseworker then takes them to an office where they spend hours waiting with only their trash bag of belongings. All those hours, they're just looking at this bag of trash. And as they sit there waiting, how do you think they feel? Unwanted. Alone. Confused. Overwhelmed. Scared. The caseworker then takes them to a stranger's house. The stranger seems nice enough, but they say things like, "Welcome home," and "Come meet your new family." And they're thinking, I don't want this to be my home. I don't want a new family. And the new family then goes through all their things and throws items away that are broken or clothes that have holes in them. Are they doing anything wrong? No. But as the child has walked through this process, being told that this is the only value that they have, and then even that's not good enough. Their life feels worthless. And as if that isn't enough, kids in care in the state of Kansas will be moved in and out of homes about 9 times. Up on the screen, we have a trash bag for every time they will be moved. Because almost every single time, it's with their stuff in a trash bag. During this time in care, they will have many court dates, visitations with families. Sometimes the family shows up, sometimes they don't. They go through things like reunification, termination of parental rights, school changes, adoption studies, and even aging out, all difficult things to walk through. They have only storms and chaos in their lives, and they are afraid. Just like the disciples. In the New Testament, we see the story of Jesus sending his disciples out onto the lake as he goes up the mountain to pray. Before we get to that part of the story, I want to make sure you understand where this flows within the context of the life and ministry of Jesus. See, right before he sends his disciples out away from their Savior, they have spent all day where he is teaching and preaching, where they have handed out food to 5,000 plus people from 2 fish and 5 loaves. Did I get that right? Yeah. Sometimes the details get mixed up. So they spent all day ministering. They are exhausted. They have poured out everything they have to this crowd of people. Pastor, I'm going to assume because we've done ministry, like we've both experienced that, and I'm going to think that probably they didn't feel a lot of gratitude from those that they were ministering to. Not because they weren't grateful, but because they were also tired and hurt and broken. Guess what? That's life. But in that moment, Jesus sends his disciples out onto a lake. Now, this is a lake that many of them have been on many times before. In fact, for some of them, this is their lake. Like, you guys all know people like, it's their lake. They know every inch of that lake, right? And they've been out on it like twice. That's not the disciples. Like, they've been out on this lake every day of their life because it brings their livelihood. The fishermen who know this lake, the ins and outs, know where it's safe to take a boat, know where it's not safe to take a boat, know where the fish are supposed to be at different parts of the year. And Jesus, sending them out on this lake, goes up a mountain to be refreshed, to be alone with God, to be alone with the Father. And he says, he's praying and receiving, and he looks out over the lake and he can see the storm building. And he sees his disciples on the boat. And he sees that as the storm continues to build, they start to struggle. And the ones who this is not their lake start looking to the others like, well, what do we do? And the ones who it is their lake, they start to realize, oh, this is not something we are prepared for. They get scared. They get overwhelmed. And even though there's at least 12 of them there, they start to feel alone. As this storm builds over them and the waves crash and the boat is rocking, Jesus looks down off of the mountain from his comfort and his safety in the Father's care. And he looks down and he sees the disciples in trouble. And you guys know the rest of the story. He walks down off the mountain, walks out. Peter jumps out of the boat, gets to have the most cool experience I could imagine, to walk on water towards Jesus. And then, of course, Peter being Peter, just like the rest of us probably would have, starts to doubt and then starts to sink, and Jesus saves him, takes him back to the boat. Now, Pastor, in any part of that story, does Jesus remove the storm? But I want to tell you what Jesus does. He sees the disciples just like he sees these kids. He sees the storm building around them. He sees that they are scared, and he has compassion on them. So I want to explain what I believe compassion is, and it's not just belief, it's built on some research. Thank you, Google, Webster, Merriam Dictionary. But also what I've seen. But before we can fully understand compassion, I think we need to understand a couple other words that are closely related. They're called sympathy and empathy. Feeling sympathy means you feel sorry for someone's situation. Many of you are feeling that right now. Even if you've never been through that situation yourself, you care that they're going through it. Empathy is when you truly understand and can feel what another person is going through. So I care about it because I've experienced it. Do you understand the difference? Sympathy, I don't really understand it, but I know I can understand the feelings it would bring out. Empathy is, I know that. I've been there. Both bring about caring. Caring's important. But the third word we're looking at is compassion. As I explained empathy and sympathy, did you notice there was a lack of something? There was a lack of action. It was, I care about this, but that's as far as I take it. Compassion takes sympathy, empathy, care, and moves. And does, and puts actions to the feelings. And that is what compassion is. It's the feeling that arises when you are confronted with another person's suffering and feel motivated to relieve that suffering. It is acting upon another person's hurts to help them. Jesus had compassion on the disciples and moved from his safety and comfort on the mountain to meet them in the middle of the storm. Jesus sees these kids and has compassion on them. How so? We know he cares about these kids. But how is he moving upon their behalf? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me introduce you to a program called Huggage. He has led us to create Huggage. I love that we sang the song, Trust in God, because that, to me, has literally become the theme song of Huggage. Because can I tell you, everybody who's ever had any interaction with the foster care system knows about the trash bag. And some will use it to build that empathy and sympathy. And some will use it to say, because of that, you should give to us. But I just, Pastor, I have this problem with bringing up problems I don't have a solution for. And so I wouldn't tell the story of the trash bag. Then I was actually at one of our friends' ministries. Maybe you've heard of the Hillcrest Children's Home in Hot Springs, Arkansas, or Compact, or that has sprung out of that. It is the first foster care ministry of the Assembly of God. Goes back 100 years plus. I was meeting with them and a couple other people down there, and I was driving back, and I said, God, I cannot do this. I cannot know that this problem exists and share about it with others without a solution. So you know what I did? For 5 hours, I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. You know, I'd heard about people always telling me about these experiences with God where it literally was like a conversation. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's great. I didn't really get it until that day. Not sure I've had it since, but that day I had it. I said, God, we got to do something. He said, here's what we're going to do. And you know what? Just like Jesus would do in the New Testament, I'd ask him a question, he'd ask me a question. I'd ask him a question, he'd ask me a question. And through that process, we built Huggage. And one pastor described it as a divine download. Huggage is literally Jesus' compassion in action through us. It is not enough for us to feel sorry for them or to even understand what they're feeling. Jesus asks us as believers to put action to our feelings towards what they are going through. So how does this work? The first thing we do is we provide, instead of the trash bag, we provide a canvas laundry bag to put their items in. Now, I want you to look at this. It's about the same shape, about the same size, would fit about the same amount of stuff. But how much more value? Financially, not a lot more. Not as much as you would think. These bags cost us about $4.50. Now, is that more than like 7 cents for a trash bag? Yes. But the difference between being handed this in your worst moment and handed this in your worst moment is incalculable. And I'm so glad I said that word right, because that was not the plan. It just came to me in the moment. On top of that, we don't just provide the canvas laundry bag, but because of what we know about trauma and how the brain is affected by that, and the struggles and the strife and the chaos and the storm, on top of that, we do our Huggage bags, which this is a high-quality backpack. If you get close enough to it, you'll notice there's a circle on there. That's an Oakley brand backpack. It's a $55 retail bag. Can I get cheaper backpacks? It's possible. Am I going to? Absolutely not. Why? What are we trying to build back in them? Value. Dignity. Inside this, and as we go out there, you'll see them on the table. We've got blankets. We've got stuffed animals. We've got fidget toys. We've got the laundry bag in there. We give 2 per bag. In case they have more than one, will fit in one. We've got in there a Bible. Can I tell you my favorite part of the Bible is that it's got a case on it with a zipper, which brings comfort before they ever open the Bible. Everything in there is specifically designed to bring comfort to the child in one way or another. And because we believe in the whole man, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, we want to bring comfort to all those things, because when one of them is hurt and suffering, they are all affected. So we put that Bible in there. But we don't want them to just I don't even know where to start with this thing. So we put in there an activity book made by the organization Called, which is out of the National Assembly of God office. And it's this really cool activity book that talks about value, talks about the love that God has for us, talks about purpose. And it points them to the right places in Scripture. Everything designed to bring comfort and care to the child. We also throw in there some Band-Aids, because the cheapest form of therapy is a Band-Aid. You get a kid who's hurting, it doesn't matter if it's an outside hurt or an inside hurt. You slap a Band-Aid on it, it just feels better. And actually, Pastor, that's one of the first things we're told that they grab and they stick them immediately on. We also, because I'm a parent, I know how it is. The last thing my kids pack anywhere we're going is what? That's right. So we actually have partnered with Delta Dental of Kansas. They have provided us over the last year and a half over 1,000 toothbrush packs to put in bags for kids. Now we're excited to do this. We launched this actually in the McPherson Newton area. Was our first launch of Huggage 2 years ago this February. As we did that, we were really building in Sedgwick County to get this going. We launched it first in June and then relaunched it in August because there was a contract change on who we would give them out through. So since that point in August, every kid over the age of 2 that has come into care in Sedgwick County has received a Huggage bag. We've also been able to expand it to the Chanute area. We have 3 churches, Chanute, Fredonia, and Iola, that all work together to provide Huggage for 4 to 5 counties down in that area. On top of that, the Montana youth director brought us up last year to be a part of their youth convention, to be the missions focus. We packed 100 bags to stay up in Montana to be distributed to kids throughout the state up there. This last week, we had our co-missionary up in Michigan do their second huggage packing party this week. They've distributed 100 bags within the Detroit area, which, can I tell you, is just a drop in the bucket for that foster care system. But their state agency keeps asking for more. And today, we get the privilege to launch our fourth in Kansas huggage. And working with TF5, what we do for huggage is we look at the previous year's numbers to decide what we're going to need for the next year. It's not a perfect system, but it works. For Cali, I'm trying to think of, there were like 5 counties: Pratt, Kingman, a couple others. In the last year, there have been 44 kids brought into care. Today, we're going to pack 20 bags. It's less than half, but it's a good start. Our design is not for GracePointe and Winfield to take over huggage here and have to fund it all and do it all, but to help you work with other churches to do so. One of the things in activating churches is we want huggage to go through the local church. Jessica's going to help us do that here. But it's going to take some work, some effort. One of the things I mentioned was kids 3 and up. We tried to make it as age neutral as possible, but there's just certain things an infant can't have. So actually, last month, we've been developing it for a while. Last month in Sedgwick County, Ember Hope, we delivered our first huggage bundles of joy, which is a diaper bag for kids 2 and under that are coming into care. It's got the laundry bag, it's got a baby blanket, it's got a stuffed animal, it's got some of those items for the kid, but it's also got wipes, baby shampoo, baby lotion, baby toothbrush, rash cream, things for the family bringing it in. It's funny. When we have 9 months to prepare for a child, we can get all sorts of stuff. Now try to do that in 90 minutes. I want to close this down by just sharing with you some of the things that we're hearing from both agencies and individuals. First is our partner at the intake office in Sedgwick County will tell us, as the kids come in, all the emotions we talked about, all the things they're feeling are absolutely spot on. And then they hand them a huggage bag. And the kids realize, oh, this is mine. I get to keep this. Which, by the way, now the caseworker is giving instead of taking. Think about that mind shift, both for the kids and the families and the caseworker. They give it to the kid starts looking out. Every kid is drawn to a different item at first. They all eventually get to the stuffed animal. Like, you'll see it. It's really, really cool. You'll want to take one home. You can't. But send me some money. I'll send you one. And they say it's really interesting because they came in sad, angry, confused, overwhelmed, and they start playing with their huggage. And they start smiling. And we talk about the scripture that he will give more than we could ever ask or imagine, and we thought huggage would do a lot of things. We've talked about most of them. But the one thing it never even occurred to me that it could bring a child into that moment was joy. And this office that is used to just being just a dark place now has kids who are playing and have some joy. Recently, in fact, in the last week, a mom that we've known for a long time, single lady, she's a foster parent. She used to be a kids pastor, and she brought in a couple of kids under the age of 2, and I'd seen that, and I said, hey, I wanted to ask you, did they come through Ember Hope, and did you receive a huggage bag? Her responses were yes and yes. And the next day on Facebook, she posted this. She said, I forgot how expensive it was to get new fosters. I wish they sent money with kids when they get placed instead of having to wait until the middle or end of the month. Sigh. Oh well, I will survive. I'm not complaining because they did come with approximately 3 to 4 outfits and 2 warm PJs each. Good job, agency. I just have to send 3 of those outfits to daycare. Plus, we got our huggage from Hope Fostered. Yay! Thank you, Bethel Life Center, who packed the bags, and Jason Giesman. It makes a difference. You see, we can't really be there to change what led to the moment of removal. But we can change that moment. Huggage is Jesus seeing these kids, loving them, and sending them something real to show that. In just a moment, we're going to wrap up. I'll pray. We're going to pray over the bags. Each bag is representation of one child. Today, we're not going to be able to do the bundles of joy. Today, we're going to focus on the regular huggage bags. But, hey, we got how many more that we got to do? I'm sure we'll make some of them bundles of joy, right? Just so that you guys are aware, each bag costs us $120 to order, pack, deliver, everything that's within that process. Promote to be able to do the next ones, all that stuff. $120. Just kind of cool, coincidental. Like if you did $10 a month, that's a whole bag for one child in that year. If you did $120 a month or $100 a month, that's 10 bags. It's nice that God arranges stuff like that so I can do easy math. So today, as we wrap up, we're going to get an opportunity to go and pack bags. If you don't help me, I got to do them all myself, and it's not nearly as fun that way. But as you're packing your bag, think about the story we told. Think about that child. You don't know the specific child. You don't know their name. You don't know what led them to that moment. You just know they're at that moment. And most of us have lived enough life that we can think back to a moment in our lives that was very similar. Where the storm had built up, where chaos reigned over our lives and we could not see a way out. And even those who were there to help seemed like they were there to destroy. And in that moment in our lives, Jesus looked down, He saw us, and He had compassion on us. I don't know what that compassion looked like in that moment for you, but I know what He wants it to look like for these kids. So we get to be a part of that. My wife and I have often talked that we do not hold Hope Fostered or Huggage tightly. It is not ours to do with what we will. It's His.